Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Hello and welcome to Fall Through, your source for deep conversations about technology, software, and computing. I'm your host, Chris Brando, also known as Scriptable, and on today's episode, it is Matt and myself again, another duo episode, and we are going to be talking about Go again. No, we're not. We are actually going to be talking about home labs and our tech setup, because we want to talk about something exciting, happy, and cheery that doesn't have anything to do with drama, and just, what our home labs look like, what our setups look like, and what our dev setups look like, inspired by the fact that I just spent an entire day upgrading many components of my dev setup. As per usual, we will have extra content for our supporters. If you're not a supporter, you should sign up today by going to fallthrough.fm/subscribe. And if you're not following us on social media, give us a follow there. And if you're on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. With that, let's get into the show. Hello, viewer / listener. Welcome back to another episode. Another fine day, if a bit overcast here in New York. And I have Matt with me today. How are you doing today, Matt?
Great. At this point, baby can come anytime. So I'm like in this weird, waiting mode, but also like have things to do mode, right? So at any point in time, it could just be like, we gotta go. So
yeah, I'm gonna be like, to the hospital. Oh no.
Yeah, basically, I have to pack my bag. That's the one thing that I have to do that I have not done. So I'll be doing it.
Yeah, gotta have that jump bag or the go bag ready to be like,
Yoy.
Which, but exciting. It's almost here, which means I have to go yell at our other co-host to be like, hey, y'all.
Hey, co-host. Remember that time where you said you wanted to start a podcast? Now's that time.
Yeah, now's the time. Matt can't be here every week because he's going to have a little tiny child depriving him of sleep for the next at least couple of months. So, or maybe you'll have a good, like one of those miraculous kids that just sleep for hours and hours and hours. I've heard some people have those where they're not a big problem. They just sleep and they're good, and then keep.
I hope so. Life. I mean, that's the dream, and we're doing everything we can to try to make that the dream, right? Like, within our power, but we don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But I did put the car seat in yesterday. I did all that. Like, I got all the tactical stuff done because you can't show up to the hospital if you don't have a car seat or a stroller or any of that stuff. They're gonna look at you and be like, why did you procreate again? Like, what are you doing here?
Why did you decide to have a kid?
Right.
Yeah. So you got the crib and everything set up too, the nursery ready.
All of that's going. Cribs, the crib, bassinets. I say bassinets plural because the one we bought doesn't like slide under our bed because our bed's really low. Like it doesn't, And then we bought another one that actually does do like a swing out or whatever. So now we have bassinets. Everything's pretty good. If you're watching this on video, my room that I'm in right now is a mess because as we've been cleaning each room, kitchen, living room, dining room, baby room, bedroom, we've just been putting all the excess here. So I have a bunch to clean up in this room, but I'll probably do that when the baby's here because, take like an hour or two and here or there and get it going. So my couch is just, it's just a storage place right now.
Yeah, no, I get that. I cleaned my desk yesterday or like organized it. And I'm like, oh my God, the way my brain feels when the space is just like so much more organized and there's all this clear space. It's like,
I'm looking at my desk right now and it's not that. It's the exact opposite of that. Actually, I have wires running over my mouse right now because I temporarily plugged something into my monitor and I didn't remove the cable yet. So it's just hanging here and I have scissors and notebooks and papers. I still have a bunch of stuff,
but it's just so much less stuff than I had the day before yesterday. So it's nice.
Yeah. You are right, though. The clearing of the desk and the clearing of the mind is so nice. Because when I do clear off my desk, I'm like, I just feel organized. I feel good.
Yeah. It scratches the right part of your brain. You're like, oh, yes. Yeah. Yes, I like that. Oh, man. And it's the same feeling I get when I refresh and update my dev setup, which is what I did yesterday. That's what I want to talk about today.
I think that's a good thing. Let's talk about that.
So I've been writing software for like a while now, like a long while now. And I've never, there's been a few times where I've sat down and like tried to make like a clean setup. And this is one of the areas where like I am definitely a fan of having LLMs because when you're trying to upgrade your setup, you're trying to do like a whole bunch of things and you run into problems. And having to scour the internet and Stack Overflow to find somebody that maybe had the same sort of problem that you do is exhausting. So I've tried this in the past where I'd be like, okay, let me upgrade my setup today. And I'd get like partway through and there'd be all this conflicting information because this new thing just got updated or they just rewrote this other thing and I got to find this other compatible stuff. And it'd be just like this trench of nonsense you got to slog your way through. And I get almost all the way through it and then be like, okay, crap, I got to go do work now. This thing is like mostly working. So I just had these like accreted layers, like these lava layers of old configurations of like, oh, I got it to a point where I have all the new stuff, but I haven't cleaned out all the old stuff. So there's just these layers of crap that were in my setup. And this is for NeoVim. So I had stuff going back to like when I first started using Vim, like over a decade ago.
Yep.
Oh my God, it's almost 15 years ago at this point. But yeah, because I remember I used to use big fat IDEs when I was in my PHP days. I had this, they were Eclipse-based IDEs back then. And they would take like 10 minutes to start up or like 5 minutes. I'm not kidding. It would take like literally like multiple minutes to open this thing. So it was like, sometimes if I was going to do a lot of work, I would open the IDE and work in there. And other times we just like open random PHP files in Text Wrangler because it would open instantly. And then I'm like, why am I doing this? And then I sat down one night and I was like, okay, I'm going to either pick Emacs or Vim. And I went through, did all this work. And then I figured out like, oh, Vim is installed on servers by default and Emacs is not. So I'm going to use that one because I'm in servers a whole bunch and all of that. So I chose a random reason to pick Vim. And then I started putting together a setup that was IDE-like as powerful as an IDE, but did not take multiple minutes to start up. And that began my Vim journey. And ever since then, I've been like, here's all my plugins I have, and here's the plugin manager I use. I've used like a couple over the years. And then recently I was just like, I was using Packer, and Packer has been unmaintained for like 5 years. And like the APIs it uses are, I think,
Vim's Packer, not HashiCorp's Packer for anyone.
Yeah. So Vim, Packer for Vim, Packer and Vim, not, yes. I was not using a tool to
imagine. I'm building a whole image just for my config. This is great.
That would be hilarious. No, it's Packer.vim, I think it was called. Like literally hasn't had a commit in like 5 years, I think. So abandoned, unmaintained. And I was talking to Claude about trying to upgrade something else, and I was like, you should really switch to lazy.nvim because that's like actually maintained. I was like, okay, sure, whatever. But so yesterday I decided like, okay, it's time. I'm going to upgrade my setup and I'm trying to get rid of the old stuff. And so I did. I sat down and I started upgrading everything, and I just ran into like multiple problems as I was doing it. But unlike before, where when I ran into problems, I would like lose literally an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours going down some rabbit hole trying to figure out why something works, forget what I was trying to do, then figure out, I got to go back to do this other thing. But every time I ran into an issue, I was just like, hey, Claude, what is this thing? Please help me with this issue. And I'd be like, oh yeah, here's this fix for it. And then it, to help me out and be like, hey, this is how you can fix this thing. And that helped tremendously. And like now I actually, unlike before where I would go through and I'd find the answer, but still like the answers were never quite as good because usually the problem wasn't specifically the problem I was having. It was like a related problem. I would never actually learn how the thing worked because trying to learn how the thing works when you have like 17 things you're trying to get clobbered together to make your setup work was not a pleasant experience. So I never really like learned deeply how the tools work, where now I have a fairly good understanding of how like lazy.nvim and how like a lot of package managers for Vim work. And that's because I was able to just sit down and like pay attention to putting together the whole thing instead of like hunting down bugs and having that take up all my mental bandwidth. So it's like another win for LLMs, whereas like a couple years ago it would have been much more annoying to go through this process and fix this. But I was also able to clean out all of the cruft. So all of the old, like there's no more like I think I have it, I think it may be public on GitHub, but like my nvim config is completely free of any Vim script. It's like 100% Lua. And it's very nice and it's working. There's still some things I need to like clear out and get rid of, but for the most part, everything is working and it's beautiful.
I think people like underestimate that time spent doing that. Yeah. Because you are correct, right? Like I did the same thing. I chose Vim for the same reason. It was installed on like, I was in the DevOps SRE space and I was like SSHing to servers and whatever as like a part of my job. And like the only reliable editor that was there was VI or Vim. And if you learned the key bindings, you were productive, right?
Yeah.
And oh man, I was on many calls with customers or internally or whatever, debugging production or non-production incidents. And like if you were proficient moving around your terminal and text editor, you were like a hero, right?
Right.
It's just funny. It's like, you know, the whole joke of, oh, how do you exit Vim? How do you use this? How do you select the line? I'm like, oh, don't touch anything in this file. Hold on. And when you're watching someone share their screen and they're just not proficient because they don't know any of that stuff,
Oh God. Yeah.
you're just like you're cringing a little bit, but not because you're trying to make fun of them. It's just like you don't want them to accidentally hit a key that'll like mess up the file that they're editing unknowingly to them and then move really quickly away from it and then save it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You don't want them to do it to make a mistake. So I was telling people, I was like, either A, give me control of your screen, which we weren't always allowed to do, right? Even though I've broken the rules a few times. Or I would just be like, don't touch anything. I'm going to tell you exactly which keys to press to do the thing that I need you to do in a good way, an efficient way. Not because of efficiency, but for safety, really, right? And it was something. So I also learned Vim because of that.
Yeah.
Which is to say, like, there was no major reason why I picked Vim. It was just like, oh, like these all line up together, Vim it is. I didn't really do any due diligence on the other editors. I just chose one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was always funny because I was looking it up. It was just like people had these big flame wars about Vim versus Emacs. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, I'm like, as long as you know one of the two, I think like that's good enough. And like, I think even today, IDEs have come like so far that using an IDE, like I used to look at people be like, oh, you're using an IDE? That's like real heavy. But now they're like a whole much lighter, like all of the IntelliJ, IDE, the JetBrains ones, they're pretty solid. Obviously VS Code, great IDE. But still, like knowing Vim or Emacs and being able to like be in the terminal and just edit in the terminal, I think is just so incredibly powerful.
I agree. I started my life on like Notepad++ or whatever. That was like my first foray into text editing, right? Or Notepad or whatever. And then Atom, I think, was the next editor that I used.
Yeah, GitHub.
Atom was great. Like it was just like, whoa, this is such a cool editor. It works. It was a little heavy with large files, right? If I opened up a large log file, it was a little slow and heavy because it was loading all that stuff. And then like I saw someone use Vim in front of me in a proficient way with some plugins and stuff, and I was like, what is this magic? Like you're moving so quickly and you're like making complex edits very fast and jumping between files. Like here I am closing my editor and opening up a new one to open up a new file. Like here I am being silly about it. Or in Atom, I was having my whole sidebar open for all these files and like 20 tabs. I'm like, what? I don't really need all this. I'm focused on a file. And that's where I started like, not just, I already knew Vim and VI, like movement wise and stuff, but that was just more so like when I had to use it. This is when I like transitioned to like, oh, I'm going to use this as my editor. Right. And I'm going to learn this and I'm going to do it. And it was hard. Like, it was
that
very,
first week
very
or two.
Hard.
Oh my God. You're so slow. You move so slowly.
Yeah. You're in that, what do they call it? The trough of sorrow or whatever they call it, whatever that sort of thing. You are totally in there and you feel like it doesn't matter if you're a principal engineer plus, like you feel like a newbie again. It doesn't matter how much experience you have or how good you are. Like if you're not fast with the actions you want to do, you just feel bad. And I felt bad. I was like, sitting in an open office space where people can see my screen and I'm typing slow, not because I type slow, but because I just can't make the movements that I want to do. Right. So like, I'm, print line, hello world takes forever to type out. I'm like, what is this? What am I doing? Jumping around. And it felt interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because there's things that people do in like I remember one of the things that I think there might be a plugin to do this, but I don't know. It's like where you can like put the cursor on in multiple places and then like type or whatever. I'm like, hey, you can do that in Vim. Yep. But you could also do you can do find and replace like an entire function. You can do all that stuff in Vim pretty easily. I think that's actually what got me stuck on Vim in the first place, is that like once I learned how to like use macros and once I just had it burned into my fingers of how to move around in Vim, using the Vim bindings in like any other editor was just like it's not enough. It's not true enough to Vim for me to actually like be okay using it, because there's just things I expect to be able to do that I can't do, or movements I think I should be able to make that just like don't work that well. And also, like, I don't know, why am I gonna go use another program to just do what I can do in Vim? Like,
I got to that point too. I was like, okay, I can use some GUI editor in Vim mode, because that's something that people recommend a lot. They're like, oh, you like Vim and you don't like the dealing with the plugins all the time, some like whatever, you can just use VS Code with Vim mode. I'm like, I did that and it felt weird. Like it felt silly, because you still have all this UI stuff around it that's not Vim, that doesn't have Vim keep. Like, yes, when you're in the buffer or tab or whatever the editor calls its window of text that you're editing, sure, Vim mode kind of works in that situation. But then it's all the surrounding stuff that doesn't really work that way. You have to configure your own custom key maps for that, or use the default key maps that they give you, which aren't really Vimmy. So I didn't like it either, and it also did feel like I'm opening up this big bloated application to do something that I was doing in Vim, which was just fine. So yeah, I kind of stayed on that side too.
Yeah, there's just something. I also just like being in a terminal. I think that's the thing, especially now that I use Ghostty. I like very much like being in the terminal, whereas before, like, I don't know. I think with iTerm 2, I still liked being in the terminal, but not nearly as much, because there were just like, I don't know. It was not as like snappy and fast and like as elegant of an experience as what it's like when you're like when you're in Ghost, or just in really any. I think this applies to like Kitty and the other editors as well, where you're just like everything renders so smoothly and so quickly. It's just like it feels like you're in a native app, even if you're not in a native app. Like it feels like you're in a GUI, even if you're in a TUI, and that's just something really, really nice about that.
I felt that when I moved to like Ghostty, I felt that the terminal layer, just general LS and all that stuff, felt snappier. And I mean, I should say maybe that I haven't used Vim in like a year. I've switched to Helix, which in my head, it's the same as Vim, right? Like the key bindings are kind of reversed in a way, because Vim does like action, then selection of action, and Helix does like selection and then action. So it's reversed, but like it's still a terminal editor, still have the same sort of, concept there. Just that Helix has sort of its plugins and stuff built in. Even though they're working on like a plugin system for anything else that's not built in, and it works. But either way, terminal editor. But yeah, I switched terminals and I was like, wow, this is much snappier from the built-in macOS terminal app or the GNOME terminal app. I'm like, Ghostty felt great. So did Alacrity. I was using Alacrity for a while, and that felt great too. And then like the maintainer of that was kind of just rude to people, and I was like, you know what, maybe I don't want to actually use your stuff. And then Mitchell shipped Ghostty, and I was like, this is perfect, right? For someone who like likes performance and all that and nativeness and uses cross-platform tools, this feels good to me. But then you're right, like that's just one layer. The editor is another layer where you're like, wait a minute, why am I using, I don't know, VS Code, and my edits take longer, opening files takes longer, it doesn't feel snappy, I'm wasting time there. And then I tried Helix and I was like, wow, this thing is really fast. Like there's something to be said with things keeping up with your movements and thinking. I can't stand being delayed by things that should be quick. Like animations are one of them to me. Like a toast notification that pops up on the website that now blocks the action that I want to do underneath it. So I have to like go to it and click the X button on it or whatever, or wait for it to like, go away from its timeout or whatever. Like, this is useless to me. Please get this out of my face.
Yeah. The other thing, like, I think that feeling of like when I switched from iTerm 2 to Ghostty is like similar to the feeling I had when I switched from Vim to NeoVim. And like I know Vim, Vim 9, Vim 8, Vim 9, I don't remember what version of Vim's on now, but like the latest version of Vim incorporated a lot of the stuff that NeoVim had. So now it is like a whole lot faster and snappier. And there's also a new version of Vim script that's aimed at being like faster. But like, I I like Lua, like even having read a little bit of Lua, I'm like, okay, this language is like actually pretty nice to work with. But NeoVim is also just like I think it is a lot like Helix in that way, where they're just like packing stuff into the editor itself. Like one of the things NeoVim has that's pretty unique about it is that it has a built-in language server protocol client. So you don't need to like install a plugin to start using language server protocol servers. You can just like start using them. And then there's this plugin called Mason that will like, you can within NeoVim download language servers and it'll install them for you. So you don't even have to like do anything special to have language servers configured and usable. And then you can make like one set of key bindings for your language servers, and it's just like regular configuration for the editor, and then that works for any language server that you load, which is just like really beautiful. And it does make NeoVim that kind of like any language that you want to write, you can easily write with it. Like, oh, if I start writing this language, I can easily get LSP integration done. All it takes is like a couple of keystrokes and boom, I have a language server running. I have all of the autocomplete and all of that stuff that I want, all of the, you know, the diagnostics that we're all used to, all of the like the, oh, I want to rename this thing, all of that, just, you know, simple and easy. I don't have to do anything special, which is one of the things when language server protocol first came out. And I was like, why do we need this? And it's like, oh, so that we don't have to have every single editor have to build a plugin for every single language. Like this M2N problem really is worth solving. And now that it's solved, it is so snappy. But the other thing that I also don't think didn't get as much, I think, hype as LSP did when it came out, but TreeSitter is like such a game changer as well, because now I can get syntax highlighting, which was also a very obnoxious thing to do back in the day of like, I want good syntax highlighting. I don't like the syntax highlighting that ships with Vim a lot of the time. And it's just like, oh no, like you can just get that and lots of just syntax manipulation through TreeSitter. And that is also integrated pretty natively into NeoVim. It's not completely, you still need like NVim TreeSitter, but like you can not only get it, but you can also compile, like retrieve. Actually, I think that's in NVim TreeSitter. Like there's TreeSitter built natively into NeoVim. What NVim TreeSitter is like it gives you the ability to basically grab any of the dial, like the syntax. What are they called in TreeSitter? They're like they're not plugins, but they're basically the same sort of thing as a plugin. Like a grammar. I feel like grammar is my thing.
Yeah. I think it's a grammar file.
Yeah. So
he likes uses it too. I just can't remember the full terminology.
Yeah, it's like some C code that gets compiled, but it'll grab it for you. So you can just basically be like :ts install and then a language, and then it'll go grab that TreeSitter file and install it for you, and then boom, you have that integration, and like everything kind of works together, and it just makes it like so easy to get started with a new language or start writing a language you weren't before, whereas that would have taken like a whole day of setup or half a day of setup to get like, let me go find all the plugins and here's the completing plugins and blah 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 blah. And now like you just don't really need that, and a lot of the reasons you don't need a lot of stuff is because so much is built into NeoVim itself, which is just really really nice, and like another point for like how much the IDE landscape and the text and terminal-based editors are like coming together in a way. Is like, yeah, like now this really is just a choice. Really comes down to a choice of, do you want to use your mouse or not, right? You can technically use your mouse in the terminal ones, and you can technically just use your keyboards in the IDEs, but the IDEs are really, I think, built around clicking. Like there's things you want to click and making clicking as fast as possible. And the terminal-based editors are really about home row proficiency and making it so you can stay on home row as much as possible. And it's just like whichever method you like using more is kind of push you in the direction of which of these two that you should be using.
Yeah, and like I think part of the thing here too, and I struggle with this too, because nobody wants to go into that trough of sorrow like we mentioned, because it's not like, oh, I switch and 5 minutes later I'm back to where I was proficiency wise, or I'm better.
Right.
Like you do have to go through, probably weeks depending on what you're switching. And people are like, oh, is it worth it? And it's like, well, it kind of depends on what your goals are. Like if you do find yourself wasting a lot of time clicking, like you were saying, and the paradigm of keeping your hands on keyboard is better, then yeah, it's probably worth it, right? But if the bottleneck isn't how fast you move with things and the bottleneck's elsewhere, you should focus on that first. It's just like debugging, right? When you get a profile of your application and you see like the large the large square or flame graph or whatever you're using to profile, like you see the largest offender, you kind of start there, right? And you say, hey, like why is this the worst thing? And like, let me make it better. It's the same thing with these tools. And it's very easy to sit there and say like, oh, I already have my editing workflow, I'm not going to waste time doing it. But you should, like, periodically, like I say this in other podcast episodes, like periodically you should come up and look around and see what's changed around you in the industry, see what's changed with you, and evaluate your tools and stuff and change. And like, dude, I can't even think about going back to UI editor at this point. Not because they're bad, because I have Zed installed and I've used it. Like I keep up with the trends. And I guess trends is the wrong word there, but like, you know what I mean? I keep up with what's happening in the industry, and seeing what new tools have arrived and how they are different and whatnot. But like, I come back to keeping my hands on the keyboard is the best thing for me, right? Like if I have to reach for the mouse, I'm automatically slowing down. And like, I've taken that sort of mantra from my editor all the way up to my desktop environment. So like my editor has key bindings that I'm using all the time to switch between, buffers or whatever. My terminal has key bindings so I can switch between tabs. And then my window manager has key bindings so I can go between windows and applications. And like, I love it, right? That's the one thing that, I do want to go back to Mac OS because I'm, we'll talk about this a little later, but the one thing I'm fearful for is like losing some of those window level key bindings, right? But I was in the trough of sorrow, man. Like when I switched to Vim, I was useless. I was useless to people for a while.
Pushing yourself through that is tough. I also think another aspect of this as well, like the whole, do you want to use your mouse? Do you want to use your keyboard? Obviously, it's not like a hard and fast rule, but like that's a lot of what GUI versus TUI boils down to. But also, it's like, is your editor one of many of your tools, or is your editor the tool? Right? With an IDE, it really is like you have a terminal inside of there, and you call and invoke things to there. You run stuff through your IDE, and you run tests and do all this other work through the IDE itself. Whereas for a terminal-based workflow, like the terminal is that main thing, and like your editor is there for when you want to edit stuff, and maybe if you want to like run tests or something. But like usually I'll just have another window open where I like run the test and see the output there, or if I'm like doing some other thing, like the editor. And technically, like NeoVim does have a terminal inside of it, so you can have a terminal, which gives you some terminalception there because you have like a terminal inside the editor inside the terminal. But I think most of us just use like our terminal-based IDEs like for the editing, or a terminal-based editor for the editing, and then we pop back out into the terminal when we need to do something else. And I like that workflow more, where my editor is one of my tools, not like the central tool that the whole rest of my ecosystem revolves around. It also means that I can like switch out my terminal without actually changing anything about my editor, which is harder to do in an IDE, where if you want to switch out your terminal, right? If you want to upgrade to Ghosty's not in VS Code, as far as I know. So like you're not going to be able to just do that.
It's like an Alacrity terminal, I think, right now.
Yeah. So like whatever terminal is in there is a terminal you got, and like there's probably a way to like maybe install the new one or something, but it's definitely not, I think, what people generally do. I think people just deal with whatever terminal is in their IDE and they just use that. But for me, it's just like, no, I can just like upgrade my terminal. And like when I upgraded to Ghostty, like I don't even think I lost a step, because I was just like, oh yeah, it's just like everything else is the same. My shell's the same, my editor's the same, all my tools are the same. It's just like the thing I'm using to use those things is different and snappier and faster and all of that.
Yep. There's a lot to be said here, because I think if you're not, this is where people get a little, Matt, like if you're always changing tools, like how productive are you? It's like, I'm not always changing tools. Like you can look at my dot files. Like I'm not constantly switching from editors or terminals. Like I'll find something new and I'll switch to it if I like it. And then over time, I'll make it better, right? Like I contribute, I say contribute, but I'll update my JJ config. I'll update my Helix config, my Ghostty config. I'll update it over time as I, find new ways to use it and things I like and shortcuts that I add. I was a very, very anti modification to default shortcuts person. Like I was very against modifying the default shortcuts. I was like, no, the person that built the app, they know better than me. And now I'm like, nah, I am modifying all of these shortcuts to be how I want them to be and what's best for me. And I realized like that's really the power here is don't just stick with the defaults. If you want something that's going to work out of the box and that you don't have to do anything with, that's fine. But also realize the true power comes in modifying these things for your use case. Like
Right.
for example, I switched to Helix because I didn't want to manage the ever changing NeoVim plugin ecosystem, right? With like you were mentioning before, Packer being not really maintained, and then Mason being the thing now. And before Packer was what, like Vim plug or something like that. I don't know. There was many others.
Oh yeah, there was plug. There were Vundle. There was a whole
Vundle.
bunch.
Yep. I was like, I don't really want to deal with this. And then the whole going to Lua, there was like a couple different LSP or TreeSitter things that you could be using at the time. And I was like, you know what? I don't really want to deal with this. I want an editor that kind of has all this part solved, but I still want the power of like terminal-based modal editing with key bindings. And that's where I found Helix. And same thing with Ghostty, right? Like I wanted a cross-platform terminal because when I was switched between Windows or Mac or Linux, some terminals don't work on them. Like for example, if you're on Mac and you're using iTerm 2, well, that doesn't work on Linux or Windows. They don't make it for those platforms. At least not that I know of. I haven't checked. I haven't checked in a while. But like I wanted a platform. I wanted tools that worked across the operating systems that I use. Right.
Right.
And that's where I found Helix and Ghostty and these things. And from there, I was like, let me configure these things my way, right? The way that I'm going to use these things. Like, oh, I don't use, like, I'll make up an example. Like, I don't use tabs in my terminal. Great. Turn all of those off, reclaim all the bindings, right? So that I have like bindings that I'm going to use for other things. Perfect. Like that's the sort of thing you have to do. And then when you get that configured your way, it's just like, you don't want to go back to anything else, right? Like, or you've unlocked the part of productivity that's beneficial to you.
And I do think that for NeoVim today is much different than NeoVim 5 or 6 years ago. Yep. Mostly because like both NeoVim and Vim now have native package management. Like I honestly debated and this is a place where like Claude convinced me of something that like I don't really know. I'll probably switch away from it eventually. But like, you know, you can natively manage your packages however you want within NeoVim if you wanted to. Like there's just like, here are the directories that you put things in, here are the ones that'll load automatically, here are the ones that'll load lazily, and you can like do all of that. You just have to learn how to actually set that all up. And it's like things like lazy, which is like I think the one that most people are on now, lazy.nvim. That makes it a whole lot easier to just like get things configured, and like when you start it, there's a nice little UI that pops up and you can like update all your modules, like, or update all your packages like within all your plugins within the editor itself. And it's like, it's really nice, it's fancy, it's like a nice little thing that you get for free, but you can definitely like do it yourself, which is really nice. I think that's like kind of where things are starting to push toward it, certainly for NeoVim, but I'm sure for other ecosystems as well. And like now it's like doable, right? Like before you did need plugins, you needed so many plugins for so many things. And over time, like at least NeoVim has like pulled a lot of the things you needed plugins for like into the core of the editor. But also like by implementing the language server protocol client and by having TreeSitter built in natively, you obviate the need for a lot of the specialized plugins you'd have to get before and have to rely on somebody else to maintain. Like you don't, like if I decided to start writing a bunch of Elixir or Erlang tomorrow, like I just download an LSP for it. I download like the TreeSitter grammars for it, and then I can go start writing it, right? There's not like let me go find the best Elixir or Erlang plugin, and hopefully it does everything that I need it to do, and if it doesn't, then I gotta go find some other plugin, and these plugins conflict because they're kind of covering the same area, but also covering different areas. Like there's a whole bunch of headaches that you just like don't have to worry about anymore that you used to be the thing that you would have to worry about that would make it more annoying to use it than, say, an IDE. But of course, IDEs, like, I think we talk about VS Code as an IDE, but VS Code isn't an IDE in the same way that like Eclipse is an IDE, or like you might think IntelliJ is an IDE. Like you go get one of the IntelliJ IDEs and it's like, here you go. Here's the whole package. You don't really need to install anything. With VS Code, you still got to go get plugins really to do some of the stuff you want to do.
And there's like plugins for everything there. It's like you need plugins to make the editor useful.
Right. And so like it's funny now that like with NeoVim, like you can get so far with basically no plugins. Like if you manage all your language server protocol servers yourself, all your LSP servers yourself, like you don't have to use Mason, right? As long as they're in path, they'll get started by the language, right? By the editor. Same thing with like, you know, you can compile your own grammars for TreeSitter if you want. There's just like these nice convenience things that you get at the end of the day that I really appreciate. And it does make it so that now community's effort is no longer spent maintaining a bunch of different plugins, but now it's like, okay, now the communities will build one language server or LSP server that everybody can use. And now it's not just like which editor gets the better treatment. It's now everybody benefits from it. Like having Go Please makes it so that now we don't have to have some community members maintaining a language server, right? Or language protocol language server protocol server. I don't like that the word server is in there. It's very annoying.
Language server protocol server plus plus. Yes. Okay,
because there's language server protocol and then you have a server or a client for it. So it's language server protocol client and language server protocol server. It's very annoying. And anyway, I should just start saying LSP. But for it's real. Nice. That what?
For real. Let's just say LSP for everything.
Yeah, LSP. But it is nice that like the community's effort can now be consolidated into a single tool, and it can be understood what that tool will do for you on like within like a nice little grid matrix, right? Because of like it exposes and says, I can do things X, Y, and Z for you, and then you can choose because you can run multiple LSP servers at once, and then you can just call out to them for different things. Right. So it's like, oh, okay, well, this one does these things. This one does this other thing. So now I can like run them together and it'll do, all of what I want. And that's just like configuration in your client that you have to do. At least I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I know you can run multiple, but I'm pretty sure you can bind to specific ones for specific things. Although I've never tried that in NeoVim because I just haven't had the need to do that.
Yeah, you can. It's just, it's configuration I don't even know how to do off the top of my head.
Yeah. But it's nice that we are at this place where it's just like so many of the like what used to be really advanced features, like getting go to definition to work in the past was just like having to set up C tags and get that all compiled. And then if you're using on an active code base, you have to like continually be recompiling them. It was like such a pain to get that working. And now it's just something that like, nope, just works. Rename is another big one that can just work. And it's like, oh, this is like other things like inbound and outbound callers, like that's also really nice, like being able to just kind of traverse the call graph of your code. It's really good references, being able to see what things reference this object is also, or refers, is really, really powerful and cool. Like there's all this like nice things that come by just having this like one thing that sits at the center and like does everything. We've eliminated the end-to-end problem, and I think all of our lives are a whole lot better for it. And obviously, in the age of LLMs and AI, being able to have the AI or the LLM or the agent be able to use an LSP itself makes it be able to produce much better code, because now it's not just kind of relying on some random thing. Now it can just be like, oh, okay, now I can just this LSP is going to give me a very explicit error about like what went wrong, and I can go fix it, which is really cool.
I want to talk about your journey in NuShell because I really like NuShell and I love when people switch to it. And I do want to talk later more about like home labby things and our physical computers and desk stuff. But like, since we were on the editor terminal stuff, I think let's talk about NuShell first and then go into the other stuff. There's a lot to talk about here. And I'm like, we're 45 minutes in. I'm like, there's so much more that I want to talk about.
There's so much.
I love this stuff. I like literally if we're at a meetup or if we're out like at a bar or whatever, like I can talk about this stuff for hours. I just love talking about this. So listener, I'm sorry. I know we're talking, we're droning on, but we love this stuff.
Minutes about editors,
basically. So tell me, like, why NuShell?
Well, I needed to make a similar decision because like Z-Shell is like it's one I've been using. Z-Shell is fine for the most part. But the real thing I need to solve was that like I have Z-Shell for like my Mac environments, like on my MacBook Pro, my MacBook Air, I use Z-Shell. But on my servers, I just had like what you went to install by default, which is Bash. And there was like, and I didn't have any configuration. So it was just like SSH into my servers, and all of a sudden, like none of the stuff I'm used to being able to do would work. And I was like, okay, we got to resolve this. But in order to resolve this, I need to like pick a shell that I want to use. And I was like, okay, do I want to pick Z shell? And I was like, maybe. And like one of my other good friends, he has gotten like really into like learning Bash very deeply. And he's on Bash. I think he's on Bash. Maybe he's on Z shell. He's one of the two. But he's like really into the POSIX shell world. Understands how to write shell scripts like himself, all of that. And I was like, okay, well, I have a lot of usage for writing shell scripts. Like I avoid writing shell scripts, and I probably should just write a shell script. And I'm like not good at writing them when I try to write them. So I'm like, I should learn something. And I was like, okay, well, I could sit down and like actually try to learn how to do all this stuff with Z shell, or try to learn how to do all this stuff with Bash or SH, or I could try one of these new shells, right? So I was like, oh, or these not new shells, but these like more innovative shells, I guess. So there's like NuShell, there's Fish, there's Elvish, there's like a bunch of others, and I was like, basically went to Claude and I was like, let's like help me have a discussion, like help me think through this, basically, of like, is it worth it for me to invest my time like learning Bash and getting really good at Bash, or would it be more useful to like maybe learn something like NuShell, or Fish, or this? And it's basically like, yeah, well, of these, like NuShell is probably the right one for you, because like, you know, Fish is good, it's closer to how Z shell works, but it's like it's much older, and it doesn't have the same kind of like, it doesn't work object oriented wise like NuShell does. And there's also Elvish, which I think kind of falls between Fish and NuShell, which is really cool. And it's also Elvish is written in Go, which opens up the possibility to like work on it, whereas like NuShell is written in Rust, and Fish is I think also in Rust now. So I was like, okay, NuShell seems to be the one. And the thing that also got me more toward NuShell is that it is object oriented, and if the things that I want to build I actually build, I will likely have to actually wander into the world of Windows. And Windows, you can either use command prompt or you can use PowerShell. And PowerShell is also object oriented. Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm probably going to wind up having to use PowerShell in the future, perhaps I should learn NuShell, because NuShell is also object oriented. So it's like, it'll be an easier transition if I already learn and already understand and already think in this kind of mentality. So it was part of the basis for it. And then also like NuShell is like a more robust shell scripting language compared to Bash. It doesn't have all of the old cruft that Bash has. So it's like, oh, I can actually like learn NuShell's script and then actually start writing scripts in NuShell, and then I can use that instead of having to use like Go or whatever other like Python or JavaScript or something to write scripts, and I can just write them in NuShell. So like that's kind of like the big motivation for me. It's like, okay, it's object oriented, which is really cool. It's a new thing to learn, and it's probably going to be advantageous for me to be thinking in the way that NuShell is oriented in the future. So it's kind of like the way the whole decision for me came together.
Yeah, I mean that's I like that, because I went through this. All right, so I went through this phase of, I was on Bash because that was what came with the system. Then I switched to Z shell with the Oh My ZSH plugin thing. Yeah. And then when I opened up a new terminal, it took like 2 seconds to load the prompt, and I was like, no, this is not for me.
Yeah.
And it's gotten better over time, whatever. And then I went to Fish, I went back to Bash actually first, and then I did like a whole Bash only super minimal setup where even my Git prompt was all Bash based, and it was fine. Right? No fancy features, just straight Bash, and it was good. Then I switched to Fish because I was like, let me try Fish, because other people seem to like it, and it has pretty good completion stuff. It's like a more out of the box friendly, friendly shell. I mean, that's what it stands for, friendly interactive shell. And let me see how it goes. So I did that, and I really liked it. Fish was great. Even with the Rust rewrite, it was perfect. It was a great shell. I have no qualms with it. And then I was like, a couple people turned me on to NuShell, and then Mitchell kept talking about it, right? And I was like, you know what? Mitchell's someone I respect. Like, when someone I respect mentions a tool repeatedly, I tend to just give it a second look and just see like, what is this doing? And I tried it once, and I was like, I can't do this, right? Like, because I didn't give it the time. I was like, let me install this on a Friday night when I have something to do. Like, it was just very, not the right time to switch, because I had no time to dedicate to it. And then I tried it again, and I was like, wow, this is nice. You have like a little piped syntax where you can like chain commands together. Not unlike the way you can with like other shells, with the pipe being, redirect standard out and standard into standard in. But NuShell kind of expects the pipes to work together in a more typed way, right? So like if you pipe a type of like an array to another command that expects an array, can work with it. And that reminded me of like piped languages like Splunk and like Axiom. And I had good experiences with those pipe languages. I enjoyed writing them. And NuShell, I enjoy that too in NuShell. I was like, oh, this feels like more like a SQL like prompt than it does a shell. in a good way,
Right.
in a good way. And I'm still not proficient. I have not read the guide and the docs like fully yet, but I've been using NuShell for like the past 6 months too, and it's been solid.
Yeah, this is also where like having an LLM helped, because I could be like, here's my current ZSH setup. Can you make a NuShell setup that's basically like this? And it did. And so like I switched, and like there are some little quirks about like, the when I get the like the ghost text, that's just like the predictive text of what you want to do. If I hit tab, it like opens up the fuzzy finder instead of just completing it. So there's things like that are a little weird, but that's just like a switch from I'm used to hitting tab, like let me hit like control F instead to just accept the auto suggestion. So there's like little things like that I have to adjust to. But so far, and it's only been like a day, so it's not been that long, but so far it's just like it doesn't feel that different. But I already like every time I type ls, I'm like, okay, this is so much nicer. like this it
is. Yeah, you have a structured format, and then you can like ls where name like this, and you can do these things, and it's pretty nice. Completion sometimes can be hit or miss depending on the program you're writing. If the program that you're using doesn't have like NuShell completions, then it can be a little annoying, but whatever, I can just type out the thing I'm trying to type out. Yeah. And like you said with LLMs, if I'm generating a complex command, I can just tell the LLM to do it. But yeah, I've found pretty similarly like that I like the concepts of NuShell. It's really good for scripting. Right. if you write some like new scripts and you give it a function that's typed, it like feels like a better TypeScript in a way. Like it just feels, oh, this shell function takes an array of this and I can do this with it. And NuShell also has built-in like parsing of structured data. So if you have like a TOML file or a JSON file, you can just open it and it'll parse that correctly and give you structured output for it, which is amazing.
That's nice.
And then it has built-in like HTTP client. So you don't have to do like curl, status code, %w, whatever the weird thing is. You can just do HTTP in the NuShell and like get structured output with that too.
Right.
I'm just like, this is nice. Dealing with structured data is nice.
Yeah, like the whole idea that it's object oriented, I think, is the big thing of like you're dealing with types and objects instead of just dealing with text.
Right.
So I think that's like the most annoying. Like there's so many different like flags you have to set on different commands to make sure that like the thing that's spitting out the data, like it has it in a format that the thing that's reading the data is expecting, so that you can connect the two things together. And it's like, oh, you're gonna do null terminator, you're gonna do line terminator, you're gonna do this. It's like trying to actually pipe things together in Bash is just like an exercise in like which flags does this support, or which is the default data format that this like tool is expecting to get in, and blah 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 blah. It's just like a whole bunch of stuff like that where it's just like, if I could just be dealing with actual types and objects, I'd be much happier. Not necessarily because types and objects are better, but just because like there's less overhead that I have to have when putting things together. And the fact that it gives you like really good error messages is helpful as well, where it's not just like, oh no bro, something failed. It's like, no, here's what failed, here's what happened, here's like a detailed, it's like the Rust compiler in that way, where it's like, here's a detailed output of what happened.
Yep.
That's just like, here's the problem right here, right there,
and
fix that.
I love that, and I've been using it. It's been great for me. I don't miss Bash. Fish, I won't say I miss Fish, but like Fish had more completion because it's been in the community for longer. So like more things have completions for it.
Right.
So in that case, like I miss Fish from that angle, but I just really like the typed aspect of NuShell, and doing things like, if I wanted to delete all running containers, I'd do something like, Docker ps-q or whatever, and then pipe that to Docker rm or whatever. And you can do that, but in NuShell, it has more of an anonymous function syntax where you do like, Docker ps-q to get the, running containers or whatever, and then like pipe it, and then each container, do this function. And it's like, feels more programmy. And I don't know, I just prefer it. Am I faster doing it on like Bash Fish? Like, yes, but I prefer doing it in NuShell, especially when you get into the more complex stuff.
Right.
And I like that personally.
Yeah, it's like I still think I might go back and try out Elvish. Like I did use Fish a long time ago. Wound up switching back to ZSH just because I needed something that was POSIX compatible. I just like couldn't be using non-POSIX shell at that time. But there's part of me that's just kind of like, once I get proficient with NuShell, I think I might go back and try Elvish, because I'm just like, this seems like an interesting mix between the two that I want to try out and see how that works. I'm just like in a mood to try new things, because it's just like I need better tools. My tools are old.
It's springtime. This is the time to do it, honestly. I mean, and it's a good behavior to do that. It's perfectly fine to try new things. Like I wish more people would do that, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's trying new languages, trying new tools, new dev tools. It's great. Although I don't think I'm moving away from NeoVim anytime soon. I know a whole bunch of people move to like Helix and other things, but I'm just, I don't know. There's so much I want to go deep on NeoVim, because I just like I like the dev team behind NeoVim. I like what they're doing. I like how much energy they're putting into it. So I just want to support that by like
They got a good community. I'll give them that. They really do. And a good dev
has
team.
A great community.
Yeah.
Like TJ is, I've used to watch him a lot on YouTube, and I'm like, he's great. He's out there just giving talks. I still got to switch out some of my tools. Like I want to start using Telescope and some other stuff. So I'm just like, these are just really awesome things that they're building and using, and so very exciting. So I'm like, I'm sticking with NeoVim for that. But everything else, I'm just like, nah. Like, let me try more stuff out, especially the shell realm. I know we said it like a year ago when we had Mitchell on. We were like, maybe we should build a shell, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm still a possibility. I'd like to learn more about shells. I think that could be.
Honestly, that's really what it comes down to, is just taking the time to be like, you know what? Actually, I do want to like understand this layer more. Let me do that. And I think more people should definitely
even just understanding terminals more, which also brings me to like the next tool that I want to talk about, because I've been using Tmux for also a very long time, but I used to use Tmux a lot heavier, right? I used to be like full blown Tmux. Multiple, like splitting the pane and having multiple things open and being proficient moving between them and doing stuff. And then I just started using like multiple actual terminal windows. And now I just use Tmux for like persistence. So if I need to run something on a server, I'll like pop open Tmux and run it inside Tmux. But the thing about it is like, the one thing I have always disliked about Tmux is that it's like special key, like the magic key is Control B, which is also what you use to scroll up in Vim. So whenever you want to scroll up, you have to hit Control BB. Yeah. And it was just, it was always so annoying. But then also I was writing some tooling with Claude that I was using. It was like outputting nice little status menus, dashboards at the bottom of the screen as I was running these like commands that would run for days. And like Tmux was just like barely playing nice with all of that. And there were constantly questions about like, well, Ghostty supports this, but will Tmux support it? Maybe if you upgrade to this newer version of Tmux, it'll have support for this thing and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, why am I using like a terminal instead of a terminal? This is silly, right? Yep. This is not what I need. What I really need at the end of the day is a way to persist my session when I close an SSH connection, right? I want to be able to SSH back into the server and actually like have the thing still running there and be able to like attach to that window or attached to that terminal instance. And I wasn't really thinking about this all that much until I like randomly read a thing on Medium a couple weeks back, where the guy was like, oh, like, I used to use Tmux and now I use this thing I built. I'm like, okay, interesting. So I read through it. No.
Okay,
So
I'm just curious.
What the article walked through was like an important, I think, distinction that a number of people have made, where it's like Tmux is kind of conflating or complecting two things together. It's trying to be like a window manager and also like a session persistence layer. And I think what a lot of people have come to is that like they want to use their native windows, right? You want to use like, oh, if I want to split panes, I want my terminal to do that, because then I can actually like, select text in one of them and it won't like bleed over into the other one. And I have to like figure out how to disentangle it or whatever, right? Because it's a terminal inside of a terminal, your terminal doesn't know that there's a split in the pane. So it doesn't know how to like stop and do the proper wrapping for copying. Whereas if you're using two terminal panes, it does know that. Or if you're using multiple terminal windows. So what a lot of people have settled on is like saying, you should have a tool that does your windowing and your tiling and all of that. And you should have another tool that does your session persistence. And so Tmux doing both makes it kind of bleh. And so this article was basically arguing like, hey, like I, tried out some different tools. There's a whole bunch of tools out there. There's one called Detach, which is like, I think like DTCH. There's one called Attach, which is ATCH, which is kind of the opposite of, not the opposite, but like a newer version of Detach. There's another one called Abduco, and there's like a pair of it. Like Abduco is a session persistence, and then there's another tool that does the tiling. So it's basically just two tools instead of one. And then there's a few others. And I kind of looked at this and I was like, oh, this is actually like, I like this, because all I do want at the end of the day is like the persistence part of it. I don't want to have another terminal emulator in this flow. I want one terminal emulator, Ghostty, and that's it.
But see, you thought about what your true needs were. Like some people are just like, no, I turned to Tmux plus everything. And it's just like, you have layers upon layers of key bindings that are conflicting with each other. No wonder why nothing works for you. Like, you have to think about what these tools are providing you and kind of make sure that there's not much of an overlap so that you have a good experience. Because I felt the same way about Tmux. I was like, why is my control B used? And then everyone's like, just change it to control A. And I was like, but that's not the point. Like the point is like
A is used.
Right, exactly. Like the point is like you have an editor that wants to use it, you have a terminal that wants to use it, and you have a multiplexer that wants to use it. And it's just like, I need to prioritize my editor, because when I'm editing text, I cannot have random things happening that aren't text editing. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
There's kind of like a layer to it. Like if I'm in a text editor, those key bindings have to be prioritized, and then my terminal next prioritized, and then my window manager prioritized after that. And I've been trying to I actually did some research on this and like talked to AI about this too, of what's the purpose of Alt? What's the purpose of control? What's the purpose of, the meta key, right? Like on key, or the super key, or whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to call it the Windows key. What's the purpose of these keys on keyboards? And like basically the TLDR was, control is for the application that's focused, and Alt is like for the general like other things, and then the meta keys for the desktop, right? The system. And I was trying to use that and kind of see how that maps back to my workflows. And it kind of works pretty well. Like my window manager, basically all of the shortcuts go through the super key, right? So like regardless of where I am, super left will go like left one window or whatever, which is great. But then like control left might go left one terminal pane or something. And or I say pane, but terminal split or whatever it's called.
Right.
And I've been trying to organize my key bindings that way, and AI has been helping me with that, which is nice, actually. Yeah.
No, that's nice. So yeah, like with all these tools, I was like, okay, these tools are cool. And the guy had written like a smaller version, because none of the tools quite did what he wanted. So we wrote like a small little C library or C application that just does session persistence. And it'll actually do a playback of the history as well. So you get the whole history, even if the process like exits, it will basically open up a new terminal, replay all the history. So it kind of like does a session restore for you, or at least shows you all of it. So you have the back scroll, which was like, oh, that's really cool. So I had like a little chat with Claude. I was like, okay, well, like here's these tools. I thought this was really cool. Are there other things out there that are like this? And that put me onto this tool called ZMX. And this tool is like, this tool is so cool. So it is just a session persistence layer. But what it does is, instead of like with other tools that do this, like the big thing is like you have to keep like a TTY around on the server in order for you to like keep everything alive, essentially. But that usually means that like you have a terminal emulator sitting between you and your terminal emulator, which is what Tmux does, and it's super annoying. So what this does instead is it uses libghosty, which is one of the big reasons why I was like, I want to use that one. So it uses libghosty, but it doesn't put libghosty like in front of you. So you're not talking, like Ghostty isn't talking through libghosty to whatever. It puts it next to it. So basically tease the output from the TTY, from the socket, and some of it goes into libghosty, which keeps this terminal state going. And then the rest of it's just a pure channel back to your terminal emulator. So there's nothing between you and the process. Yeah. Right? There's just this thing sitting off to the side. And then when you reconnect, it uses libghosty to replay the entire session state back to your terminal emulator. So now your terminal emulator has the full session state. So you have the full back scroll and all of that you would have had if you'd stayed connected the entire time, but it's not sitting between you and the process at the end of the day. So this I was like, okay, this is so cool. I sat down and played around with it a little bit. I'm like, okay, this is clearly what I want to have. And there's actually some configuration on the page that tells you how to like pair this well with SSH, where like the typical paradigm is that like, you know, if you're using Tmux, you'd SSH in and then you Tmux attach, and then you have all your panes and everything. And the idea when you're using something like ZMX is that you just SSH in multiple times for each window or for each pane that you have that's native to your terminal emulator. And it there's a little snippet of configuration there that makes it so that all of your SSH sessions to the same server will use one SSH connection instead of them using like starting their own connections, which is really cool. And then there's also like it gives you like a little shortcut, so you can just kind of type like a letter. You can give a letter for like a prefix, and then like whatever you want your session name to be. And then it'll connect to that server and then open up ZMX on that server and start a session for you. And if there's one already running, it'll just connect to that one. So you can have these kind of like persistent named sessions on a server, which is really cool, because that's basically what I've started doing with Tmux, where it's just like I go in Tmux and then if I know I need to run something long, I'll just like start up a Tmux session and then write the thing in it, but I'll never name them because I never remember to name them when I start them, or I don't really know what's going to be in them. Yeah. So this like encourages you to like, name them a little bit earlier. But it's just like this kind of, it's a simple tool, truly simple. It's a little tool that just does a very particular thing that you need and gets as far out of the way as it possibly can for everything else. And I'm just like, this is like peak engineering in a way, because it's just like, it solved the problem in a really elegant way. And gives you just the right amount of functionality that you need. Not too little, not too much. And I'm like, this is what I wanted. Yeah.
See, but that like, again, you thought about the problem a little bit more, and you chose a tool to like work with the limitations and productivity gains you wanted to see. Right. Like that's why I moved away from Tmux as well. Like I enjoyed the ability to manage windows and panes and all that. That's fine. But now like Ghostty can do most of that today, and it works for me. Like I have tabs, and sometimes I use splits. I rarely use splits. I'm an enjoyer of like switching my whole screen rather than having like splits. Maybe I'll use splits if I'm like showing something to someone and I want to like have that side by side, but like my window manager can do that with 2 tabs anyway. So like, you know, there's different areas to do that. But I moved away from Tmux because of that too. Like I wanted something that was I could use on remote hosts and keep my session persistent or whatever. But then I also wasn't naming my sessions correctly, and I wasn't doing this correctly. And I was just like, I was only ever have one session, like, you know, and I was like, why do I have the overhead of this thing? And then on top of that, you have the key binding conflictions, right? Like why am I doing this again? And then I just stopped using it and I never looked back. Yeah. You know? I know people are like, oh, but Claude Code now integrates with Tmux when you use subagents and stuff. Like, I don't care, man. I don't. I just don't care.
I don't. Like, although, oh my lord, I left Claude running in some Tmux sessions. Oh my god, is that a resource hog? Like, it was using like 80 gigs of RAM. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yep.
It was using swap. I'm like, what are you doing? I was like, why is all my swap used? Like, why is all like, what is this? This is a server. It has 256 gigs of RAM. Why is so much of the swap used? And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, it's just because I have like 4 Claude code sessions open, and they've just been open, not doing anything, mind you. They have not been doing anything. They've been sitting there, and yet still, it's taking up. I'm like, how are you taking up this much? And it's like, because they vibe coded Claude Code, and it's just like it's very nice, but it's a stack of garbage as far as I can tell. Like, it does not. It's not built to be a very efficient agent system. It's built to be a very useful agent system. And the amount of RAM it takes up, even like on Mac OS, it takes up so much. I'm like, why does this thing consume? It just like gobbles up RAM. And with RAM at these prices, it should not be doing that. But like, it just gobbles up RAM. And I'm like, bro, what is this? So that was quite unpleasant. I will not be doing that in the future. I will make sure to stop my Claude Code sessions. But yeah, it's But yeah, the fact that like Claude Code integrates with it, I'm like, okay, so what? You can just all open it in a terminal too. Like that you can just do that, or just reopen them. Use resume. Name your Claude Code sessions and resume them. Like,
I mean, you're totally correct. Like, and it has to do with the fact that it was vibe coded up, and there's just a lot being built on top of things right now. Where I don't know. I don't need multiplexing of my Claude Code sessions to that degree. Like I do run multiple ones in different tabs, but I don't need it to be a Tmux integrated and all this stuff. And
you're not trying to do Gastown.
Yeah, I'm not trying to do Gastown, and like I don't even want to do like I don't want that mental overhead of like, let me telegram my instances and open Claude up or whatever. I don't. When I step away from the computer, I like to kick off things, right? I'll kick off research, I'll kick off things, and maybe I'll come by and check on it later. But I don't really need it to be on my phone, right? Like to the level where it's like interrupting me and all that stuff. Like it's perfectly fine if you want to start a remote session and be like, hey, I'm gonna check on this peer. Like I gotta go run to a dinner or something, and I'm just gonna like click yes every now and then to like unblock it. Like fine, whatever you want, live your life, man. But to be like, if I'm not running something 24/7, it's a problem. Like that's just a horrible mindset. Go do something else. Like it's okay. Go do something else.
Yeah.
But people really feel that right now. And I get it. I can see why, but also don't do that to yourself.
I also just hate not knowing if I can, like, this is a tangent about Claude, but like, I don't like how if I'm either in web or on my phone, and I'm like waiting for Claude to process something, I don't like that I don't know if I can click away from it and it'll still keep running or not. Like sometimes it's fine. You can close the conversation and it'll keep processing in the background. Other times it'll just stop processing. And I'm like, why? I want to switch to other apps and not be worried that like you're just not going to be doing this research thing I asked you to do because I moved away and iOS killed you. Like how is this working such that you need like persistent thing from the front end to do work? I don't understand. Why is this not all happening server side?
I agree. I guess that's what something like an OpenClaw is meant to combat. They're trying to be like, hey, like you run server side and like put your agent on some host somewhere, and then you kind of talk to it front end via like Telegram or whatever other things they have, WhatsApp. And I get it, and it makes sense. But that doesn't really always solve the permissions problem and like the prompting of, can I do this? Can I do this? Like, right. And then I know the answer there is just run with, dangerously skip permissions or whatever. It's like, well, no. That's also another problem. So like I said, I don't mind having access to unblock the AI thing, but I agree with you. There's two sort of, conflicting problems here. One, I don't want the mental bandwidth of like, I am away from my computer and I'm thinking about what my agent's doing. Like that's silly. Like I'm gonna go live my life.
Right.
But also I don't want to walk away from my computer knowing that if I just walked back to it 1 minute later and hit the button, it would have unblocked it. You know what I mean? Like, especially when you're kicking off something that is probably going to take 30, 40 an hour, right? Like it's going to take a while. And you're like, I'm going to step away. I'm going to kick this thing off. I'm going to step away for 40 minutes. And hopefully when I'm back, it'll be done. But then you kick it off and you step away for 40 minutes. You come back, you're like, damn it, 10 seconds later, it stopped. Like that's the worst feeling.
Yeah. This is the thing of like trying to figure out how to make like fine tune Claude's permissions is just so obnoxious, right? And this is like another area where like I'm also going through the process of like learning a lot about, system D, process isolation, and also like app armor and SE Linux and all this other stuff. So I can actually like be a better security person when it comes to my own systems. But it's like, right. I can understand the impulse to just run Claude code inside of a Docker container or inside of a VM and be like, here, I can turn on dangerously skip permissions and you're not going to blow up this machine in a way that's annoying. So it's like, oh, we want this to be more sandboxed, but it's just so obnoxious to actually get that to work properly. Or
it really is.
Like have it know which, because it's very, it seems to be very reluctant. It's on the conservative side when it comes to safety, I think, when it's running things. So it'll opt to ask you permission than to just think your prior permission covers what it's doing. But that also just gets annoying because then you're just sitting there hitting like, okay. And then until you like configure the permissions to like call the amount of stuff that you want to call. Which is just annoying. Which is like it almost has compelled me to start writing like little Go applications that will do like the specific task. Because the problem is like it'll try and write a Python script to do a task or a Bash script to do a task, and then the permission system will be like, "Whoa, you need to have the person actually approve this," and then you spend like 30 seconds or a minute reading through this Bash script, being like, "It doesn't look like it's doing anything weird," so you just hit OK. And like sometimes these Bash or Python things are like gigantic, and all it's doing is like a little bit of like, oh, I'm just trying to present this data in a better way. And I'm like, okay, well, this is like 100 lines of code that I now have to read through, and that's really annoying. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it really is. I want to take some of like, you know, while baby's here and I have some time away from the computer from a work perspective, I do want to like take some time to think about like how I want to use agents in the future, like, and how I want to make the best of it. Cause I mean, I'm using a lot of AMP right now, like AMP, the CLI agent thing. And I use Claude every now and then, but mostly I use AMP and it's fine. And I really like AMP because it has that remote session storage essentially. So when you run AMP, it stores the session data and you have like different visibility levels you can give it to, like, you know, public, workspace, unlisted, and private. So for me, when I step away and then I come back, I can always just look at those session threads and be like, where was I? And it's per repo and it's per directory really. And if it finds a repo using like Git or JJ or whatever, it'll like see, oh, this is part of this repository. So it groups them. So I can go ask the question, say like, hey, I was working on this Kubernetes integration in this repo, and pull up the thread and be like, okay, here's where I left off. And it's like a nice way to kind of switch context. But I'm definitely not like maximizing my agent parallelization, right? Like I'm definitely not maximizing that. And I would like to take some time to think about that more when I'm on break. It's funny that social media right now will have you believe that if you're not running like, you know, OpenClaw or whatever, that you're like, you're so far behind. It's like, nah, you're really not. But then the same people on social media would be like, none of this matters in 6 months. So it's like, if nothing matters in 6 months and you telling me that I should be on this or I'll like, I won't make it, why don't I just do nothing and then wait for the new thing in 6 months and just use that instead? You know, like it's like those people that never adopt something and they're like, I'm not going to do it. And then that thing gets like deprecated. And like, see, I knew I made the right decision to not adopt this thing. Like, sometimes that is the right way. And I feel somewhat like that with this like OpenClaw sort of gas towny mindset. It's like you're telling me what's beneficial today and how you would work today in a more optimal setup, but then you're also telling me that none of this matters in 6 months. So maybe I shouldn't try. like you know, like maybe I just don't do it. Maybe I just do nothing. Like whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
no,
like
I definitely think that like with the way that I'm trying to like the way I'm going about things, I'm like, oh yeah, no, just we should all have lower level. I think that's what we're gonna get at the end of the day. I think that's kind of a bit. But if you take the charitable interpretation of like, oh, it's not gonna matter in 6 months, it's like, yeah, the way that we use these tools won't matter in 6 months. And I think that is like largely true because the way we use tools is constantly shifting. Because it's like, you know, before we were just all in web sessions or whatever, maybe like using an API or something, and now so many of us are in like Claude, and now we're trying to invoke Claude via, you know, put a whole bunch of Claude codes together so they can talk to each other, and then Claude builds that in, so now you can have sub agents talking to each other without having, it's like all of this stuff like everybody's chasing. I'm like, yeah, the way that we use Claude today is different than the way we used Claude 9 months ago. Because like Claude can do different things today than it could do 9 months ago. Right. So I think that's like very valuable. But it's also like, you know, I, for one, you know, it hasn't even been 6 months I've been using this stuff. But it's like I was very much into like I will just use Claude because Claude seems like the one I should be using all the time. But now that I'm like looking more outward, I'm like, actually, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. A lot of interesting things. Although I really do need like bigger graphics cards, I think, at the end of the day, but I don't want to spend the money to get bigger graphics cards because they are so pricey.
I agree. Speaking of bigger graphics cards, like this is probably a good time to talk about the homelab desktop stuff. Like I've been trying to move. I've always been a self-hoster to some extent. Right? I always like running things at home when necessary and have a nice, powerful computer and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And there's two sides to this. One side is like my workstation, right? The thing that I primarily work on and do do work, right? Content creation, development, everything. Just do my job plus content creation. And right now, I'm a fan of desktop machines that are plugged into the wall, that don't have like a battery, like, just powerful stationary machines. I like to work at this desk, and that's where I get most of my work done. So I've been reevaluating my setup, and I love the Framework desktop. I really do. It's a great, powerful machine. For all intents and purposes, this is a Mac Studio in terms of like power, not the Ultra, but like definitely, Mac Studio like esque.
Right.
And plus the power usage and the size are like really nice. I have my old tower here, my ATX tower for the Fractal North XL that I'm selling. I don't want this big ass computer anymore, man. I don't want it. I don't want a big ass computer. I want a small computer that's very powerful.
Yeah.
So I'm in the position where I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to move to like a Mac Studio or whatever for a couple reasons. One, I like the size and the power that this Framework desktop gives me. So like the Mac Studio gives you that as well. Great. Two, I love Linux, but I'm getting so beat up by these paper cuts that I'm over it. like that I'm over it. I'm tired of trying to go, I have 3 hours. Let me record and edit a YouTube video real quick. Oh, I can't because I updated this and now we have a broken driver and a broken kernel module or something. Like, I'm so over that crap, right?
Understandably.
Yeah. And then like even just little things like it's not technically a Thunderbolt port, it's a USB 4 port. So sometimes you get like little inconsistencies trying to use it with your devices. And I'm just like, this is such a powerful computer for like programming and compiling. But as a desktop machine, like it's fine. When it works fine. Like rendering videos and all that, it's great. But then like, oh, Matt, I need you to join a WebEx call because we're meeting with a customer that only uses WebEx. And it's like the secure version of WebEx that requires the app and can't go through a browser. Oh, they don't have an app for Linux, so you have to go to your mobile. Like, I'm done with that shit. You know what I mean? I'm just sorry. I said a bad word.
You've done it 4 times.
I know. I'm sorry. Like I'm done with that. It's just a lot of time wasted. We're talking about productivity. So like I have all these productivity increases with my tools, except at this layer. You know? So I'm waiting for Apple to release whatever next gen Mac Studio they're doing because I know
M5 Ultra.
Probably M5 Ultra. I'm just gonna hop on that because we're at the point now where the memory bandwidth is pretty good, and you can get a lot of RAM. You can run some good models locally and get to like 100 tokens a second depending on the model, and like that's actually nice. Yeah. And it's a beast for compiling, and it has a compatible operating system for all the applications I'm going to run, both for work and for content creation. And I can edit the photo. We were talking before the podcast recording, and I can do these little quick screenshot plus markup and send rather than having to try to download GIMP or something and make that work. Like, I just want to do this. Right. And so that's where I'm at. I'm done. I'm not going to throw in the towel.
They're like, I don't want to deal with this nonsense anymore.
Yep. I'm done. I can't, especially with kid on the way. Like, I can't be, on the Arch Linux forums trying to debug a kernel module error for an R package. Like, I'm good.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Totally take away my Linux card. I don't care. Do what you got to do.
Be done with it. No more. No, I get that. The hardware side of things is, but of course there's the other thing that you're doing, but that's on your server, is running the running the Oxide control plane, right?
Yes. So outside of my workstation, which, I'll be going Mac Studio plus probably MacBook Air because the traveling with a Framework 16, not recommended. It's just way too big, bulky, heavy. The weight I can deal with. It's the size that really sucks. Bulky, doesn't fit in the seat back of an airplane. It sucks to use on an airplane. It sucks to lug around. I'm just gonna go with a lightweight MacBook Air or something. Anyway, the homelab stuff. So I have 83 terabytes on my NAS here, the the Unify Pro NAS 8 or whatever, 8 slots, and I put 14 terabyte drives in there running RAID 6, and it's served over the 10G network. It's doing great. And I'm going to put, I have files there for normal like video recordings and all of that I do for, YouTube and whatever. Photos are there, videos, movies, whatever is going to be stored on there is stored on there. Photos is a big one. So I have that going. And then I have a Turing Pi setup, which runs a Kubernetes cluster that I have, containers running on that for various things, which I'm going to move that to Oxide because like I want to dog food the integrations we're building a little bit more than I am today and do that. But then I have my old workstation, which was in this big computer case that you can't see off camera, the Fractal North XL. I put that in the rack. I have a rack in my basement. I bought a 5U case, put it in the 5U case, put it in the rack. And I'm like, hey, this thing has 256 gigs of RAM and a 9950X 3D processor. This thing is a beast. This can run Oxide's control plane Omicron, no problem. Right. And install VMs on top of it because you have so much RAM headroom that sure, you only have 32 threads of the CPU or whatever, but like whatever, let the kernel like divvy that up. Who cares? Right. But RAM, I have a lot of headroom there. I can run like comfortably probably like 10, 20 VMs on that thing comfortably, depending on the size of them. Like if you give them all 8 gigs or whatever, like that's great. But I use it for local dev. Like I gave my coworker access to it because he was going to buy hardware. And I was like, probably shouldn't buy hardware because the RAM alone is going to be more than what I spent on this whole build. So since I have this hardware, I will just make it available to you over VPN and you can just use it there. And he's been doing that. And it's running well. And I released a video on how to run that stuff. I have one last topic to talk about. I know we've been recording for a while, but and speaking of homelab, I went through my whole Unify stack. So I got new access points, right? New switch. So my whole network is 10 gig now, even to the access points. There's a 10 gig uplink from the access point to my switch, which is nice because now my Wi-Fi can get 2+ gigabits per second. Yeah, which is great. And it's all Wi-Fi 7, which is nice because if you have a Wi-Fi 7 device, it'll use that and it's great. But the thing I wanted to talk about was I was having the problem with Wi-Fi is that you have to kind of think about the bands and the SSIDs that you like put out there, right? You can't just do one SSID with like all the, radio bands and put all your clients on that. Because if you do that, then you'll have like a 2.4 client that's a little far away, kind of like messing with the latency and bandwidth for the 5 gigahertz client that's like closer, that wants to go a little faster. So like you want to like separate your radio bands out and blah, blah, blah. But then like there's kind of a limit to how many bands you want or how many radio SSIDs you want to have out anyway. Because if you have, 3 different SSIDs all broadcasting in 2.4, well, they're actually interfering with each other because now they all have to be on different channels and like you have these things to consider. And like previously you would have to do like an SSID per network. So if you wanted to like isolate things, like let's say you wanted your Internet of Things devices on one network and like your cameras like on another and like your guest network on another, you would like create 3 SSIDs and put them, on different networks. And evidently, I don't know how I missed this, but this has been around for a while, but there's a thing called private pre-shared keys, PPSK.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know. That these were a thing. But now you can have like one SSID that's on 2.4. And let's say you want to connect your cameras and your IoT devices to this network. You can give them different, private pre-shared keys and they'll go on different respective networks. Right. Like, this is amazing. So now I don't have to worry about creating an SSD per network, SSID per network. I can just create the radio bands that I need, right? So like I have like my primary one with like my high speed devices on it, and then I have this sort of like IoT one for like all 2.4 devices that I don't want them to slow down my other devices, and then I have the guest network, which also has like all 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz for guests, but like very just cut off completely. And this is amazing. I love it. Like this has been such a good revelation, and AI helped me get there and realize that it was a thing, Yeah. And because I was using AI, I was like, hey, I have my network. I want to think about like my VLAN strategy here and separating things. And here's sort of the things I care about. And here's what I want to do. And I want to have the ability to have firewall rules between these networks and blah, blah, blah. And just going over my home network and just trying to organize it a little bit better. And then when we got to the Wi-Fi section, they were like, well, if you don't want to create too many SSIDs, you could always use private pre-shared keys. And I was like, what's this? Yeah. And like, it was just great. And then when I found that, I was like, wow, that solves everything that I need. Like the biggest problem that I had, this solves it. Yeah. And so if you don't know about private pre-shared keys, like they are so good. And I had no idea about them. So
no, that's cool. Yeah, because I've been thinking about my Wi-Fi stuff as well. Because I'm gonna like experiment with making my own APs. Like I have these little cards that are yeah. It's like a little Wi-Fi card, but it's built to be an AP. So I'm gonna stick them in my servers so that I have really fast access to my NAS. So just put it in the same server as my NAS. Now I can have a network that I can like have my phone connected to. That will just be like, oh, if I want to transfer things to my NAS from my phone, I can do it at full speed without having to worry about going through my network infrastructure, which is really cool. And for that one, I'm going to set it up so that it's using public private keys. So I'll have I'll make a config that I'll dump on my phone, so that I don't have to share any type of key or anything like that, and that makes it even more secure. And so I'm just going to have to set up all of the stuff on Linux and whatnot to make it work. And that's like another exciting project I have going.
I used to manage a lab at New Jersey Institute of Technology when I was teaching there. And we had like a little, just a computer lab where we do assignments and things with students. And we had like a little server rack there, but we didn't have a good like router. So I used one of those servers and ran like CentOS on it and made that a router. And this was like the first time I realized that, A, you can just do things, right? Yeah. And B, a router is nothing more than like some computer that just knows how to forward packets between interfaces and network. You know what I mean? It was just like one of those times because like a router in your mind is like
a special thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Is like the box in your parents' house that you connect for internet, right? Yeah. But it's like a router in the technical sense isn't that really, it's like any device is a router if it knows how to route packets across networks, right? On layer 3. And you have to set like the sysctl flag to allow IP forward, because like by default the kernel was like, nah man, I'm not letting you do that. Right. And it sounds so simple. I mean, this was like over a decade ago now, right? It's like I was just getting into technology and I was very new. But like it's those simple little breakthroughs that really get you like, oh, this is just like a feature, right. There is the fact that a router is a device that I put on my TV stand over there that's not just fully it, right? That's just like, that's the mainstream consumer version of it. But this all started here. Like this was a router,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is funny how like everything is just a computer. Like all of this stuff, you're like, oh, like any of this, it's like it's just a computer in there. I mean, some stuff is like faster computers or like hardware computers, because like FPGAs are like computers, but they're not like the computers we're used to, right? Not everything is a microprocessor. Certainly like the ASICs that you have for actual like switching of packets and whatnot, that is not really a microcontroller. As you variable networking oxide, where you've built your own switch, which is just like, oh yeah, that's a whole other set of things and the whole OS and all of this stuff you got to run. But yeah, it's all just computers at the end of the day. Like it's nothing's super special. It's just computers we packaged up in different ways.
Yep. I mean, honestly, basically that's all it is. And when you can step back and realize that, your home lab journey and your computer journey just becomes so fun. Like, oh, I could just take this weird computer that I have and just use it in this way, right? Like people do those headless designs for laptops where they take a laptop board out and they shove it in like a little case, and now you have like a small little headless computer. Okay, yeah, that works. Of course it works, because it's a computer. Like we don't see it that way because we look, it's a laptop and you think that the whole thing has to be assembled for it to work. It's like, nope, that board actually works. If it's not connected to a screen, it doesn't actually matter. Yeah. Yeah. It's fun to kind of revisit that a little bit and be reminded that like these don't have to, these can do whatever we want to do. It's a computer.
Actually, yeah, I've definitely like, especially around the topic of like LLMs and AI, I've come around quite a bit on like the idea of like, is this stuff useful or is it like poisoning the minds of people? And it's like with everything else, it's like, no, this is a tool. It's a tool at the end of the day. Yes, a lot of people will use the tool incorrectly. It's like a calculator or a graphing calculator or any of that stuff. It's like, yes, these are tools and you can use those tools to like cheat, or you can use those tools to help yourself do better, and you can use them creatively. It's like I was watching some video. I think it was like I was watching a video of a professor that had like taken everybody's phone and was like, there's we're in the library in the first floor, you'll find a whole bunch of books. Here are like a stack of questions. Answer as many of these questions as you can using these books as quickly as you can. Like, and however many, the team that had the most got like, I don't know, some really big thing, like 10 points or something when they made it so they didn't have to like do a homework assignment or something. So like really good incentive. And then he had the next class was like, okay, you can use your phone and like you need to answer as many as you can. The team who answers all of these questions the fastest will get the same prize as the other class did for the team that got the most answers. And so everybody's like pulling up ChatGPT, whatever, taking pictures of the questions, answering them, writing as fast as possible. And some freshman goes up to the professor like 5 minutes in. So I think it took 10 minutes for the people using AI, and was like, do they have to be the right answers? And he was like, I didn't specify that, so no, they don't have to be the right answers. The specification was whoever can answer the questions the fastest, and that team wound up winning. I think that was the team wound up winning because they just wrote down whatever and then handed it in, because like it was like, oh yeah, he didn't say you have to answer them correctly. He just said you have to answer all of the questions. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. And I think in the comments of that video, there was someone that was like, oh yes, a professor once said that we could bring a cheat card to this exam. It was like not open book, but it's like you can usually a like 5x8 index card, right? Yeah. But he only said 5x8. So the person came in with a 5 foot by 4, 5 foot by 8 foot, or with 5x3, whatever it was. But it was like a foot instead of inches card with everything written on it. And the professor was like, yeah, I didn't specify the dimension. So yeah, you can. I said 5x8. This is 5x8.
Numbers without units don't matter.
And I'm like, that's the level of creativity. Like, those are the people that are going to be real good in the future with all these LLMs and AI stuff. Because those are the people that are like thinking, like they see something and they say, oh, where have things been underspecified? How can I use this tool to my advantage to get a better advantage than everybody else can? And I think AI and LLMs are just like another instance of those.
I agree. That's actually a whole nother good topic that we should talk about at some point in the future, because that ability to learn and like, you know, adapt on the fly, because it's something that you don't, if you're given time, yes, anyone can find the holes, right? Like, right. But there's something to be said about doing it quickly and on the fly. And like, oh, technically you said, you know, that ability to do it quickly is actually very powerful. Yeah.
And I actually like, There's I think that ties into a future episode. I think it's probably the same episode that I want to do. And we definitely have to have Steve on. But I had a long conversation with Claude because I was watching some YouTube videos. It was some YouTube drama, some YouTube beef of like somebody made a video and someone made a video criticizing the video. Another person made a video criticizing the other video. And I've seen a lot of these like AI sloppy videos. Slop about AI, not slop produced by AI, that keep talking about like doom and they're going to take over the world and kill us all or stuff like that. And everybody's been arguing about that. And I was sitting there questioning, like, why am I unbothered by the idea of superintelligence? Like, I am not worried or concerned one little bit about the prospect of like superintelligence. Because like I am a person of words. So I'm just like, you need to define superintelligence. And like, even when I talked to Claude about it, I'm like, here's all the holes in what you just told me. And it was like, yeah, I'm like, you know, better than any person. I think I said this to Ian once. And I'm like, who's the best author? Who's the best chef? Who's the best? Like, if this thing's gonna be able to do better than the best human, you have to first say what the best human is at something.
Right.
And then, of course,
Right.
the conversation just went all the way back to the origins of the idea of intelligence in the first place, which is unfortunately eugenics, as is the origin for a lot of things that are unfortunate that have that genesis, like statistics or modern statistics. But it's just like, yeah, there's a lot of like racism in like the idea of intelligence, and it like gets into like the stack ranking of humans. But that kind of led me to a very big insight around like why I am completely unworried about superintelligence, even if it could exist, why I am not worried about it at all, and why it makes complete sense to me why people in power, and especially the people running AI companies, are so worried about this, and why I think it says a lot about society,
Worried about
and
making it?
worried about superintelligence and what superintelligence will do to us, right?
Oh,
The idea that superintelligence would kill us all or enslave all of us or make us pets or whatever version of that thing you want to talk about, there's a very specific reason, I believe, why they are very worried about that says a whole lot about what your view on humanity is, and how my view, and I think it comes from being a black person in America, is completely divorced from that, and why my view is, I would say, the hilariously more correct one. Like, if you are very, very worried about superintelligence, you have some very fundamental misunderstandings about intelligence as a thing, about what it means for something to be more intelligent, and about how nature works as a whole. But that's another episode, and we're already 2 hours in. So I hope that's enough of a teaser for you, listener/viewer, to listen to that episode when we make it, because it was a very big insight for me, and it has made me just so many levels of not worried about superintelligence, which is very comforting, because I was getting a little bit distressed about why I was so unbothered by this. Well, so many people are running around freaked out by this. So, teaser. And with that, we are at 2 hours. So this is going to be fun for me to edit. Yeah. So Matt, do you have anything else to say before we close it out?
No, just, get out there, try some new tools, go dust off your home lab and, get out. There's so much value that can be extracted and learning from it that you should just take the plunge. Like, my stuff was running on old hardware and old outdated patterns that I learned through AI. I was like, oh, like I said, that private pre-shared keys really changed my setup here. And it's something I didn't say about that I'll just say quickly. Sorry. It wasn't just like, oh, I have a cleaner network. My latency dropped and my throughput increased on the same access point, even without upgrading the access point, because I did this sort of stuff before I upgraded the access point. Right. I was getting like 150 to 180 loaded latency on my AP, which is horrible. Right. And my throughput was like 200 megabits down, 80 megabits up. Horrible.
Right.
Switched these settings around, cleaned up the bands, made sure the private pre-shared keys were in, and like the slow 2.4 clients that were far away were joining this one band, and organize it all. Immediately jumped to 800 up and down, and like low 20s latency or whatever it was for loaded. And I was like, whoa, like this is crazy. So there's just hidden gains that have to be had if you look.
Nice. It's a good place to end. So yeah, viewer/listener, what did you think about this episode? We went all over the place. We went from talking about editors and terminals and fun new tools there, to talking about AI tools and LLM tools, to talking about hardware. Kind of ran the gamut. So let us know your thoughts. In all the usual places. Hit us up on Changelog Zulip. There's been a lot of really great conversations in Changelog Zulip recently, so if you're not in there, you should definitely join. But also on Gopher Slack, or on social media, or wherever else you might find your lovely Fall Through host or co-host. This episode of Fall Through was hosted by Chris Brando with co-host Matthew Sanabria. Fall Through is produced by Chris Brando, and our beats are by Breakmaster Cylinder. Complete.